In the opening scene, an agent named Leland Turbo is recording a flash transmission for a certain Agent Finn McMissile. His cover has been compromised, and he needs backup. His pursuers show up at the scene, and Leland Turbo ends the transmission as he tries to escape. Meanwhile, in the next scene, we see a cruiser boat taking Agent Finn McMissile to a secret location. The cruiser boat asks what he's looking for, and the agent discloses that he's going to see a friend. Just then, the cruiser boat is confronted by a much larger military-grade boat. Agent McMissile hides away from the searchlight while the large boat asks the cruiser to turn back. After being threatened at gunpoint, the cruiser boat reluctantly agrees to leave, but Agent McMissile sneakily stows away on the big boat. The agent is taken to an oil rig, which turns out to be the base of operation for criminal activities. He tries to contact his colleague, Agent Leland Turbo, but doesn't get any response. Just then, he spots a certain wanted criminal, a professor named Professor Zundap. They present the professor with merchandise in a box, and when they open the box, Agent McMissile sees a strange-looking camera. He moves in closer to take better pictures, but just then, they bring out a squeezed-up car referring to it as Agent Leland Turbo. Agent McMissile gets angry and takes out his gun, but thanks to an oil rig flare, the secret agent is discovered. A car chase ensues, and using his special gadgets, Agent McMissile shakes off his purses. The agent gets cornered at a helicopter pad, stuck between his pursuers and the ocean. Wasting no time, Agent McMissile leaps into the water, changing to boat mode. The criminals don't relent and give chase in their military-grade boats, bent on terminating the agent. After a barrage of bullets and missiles, the agent fakes his death, switching to submarine mode and escaping underwater. Thinking the agent has been exterminated, the criminals end the chase, satisfied with the outcome. Meanwhile, back at Radiator Springs, Mater is busy with his job of towing vehicles. He's excited about his friend Lightning McQueen winning his 4th Piston Cup and can't wait to see him again. Coincidentally, Mater reaches home and finds McQueen waiting for him there. After a rather joyful reunion, the two friends spend the day having fun together. They make their way back into town, and McQueen reveals that they won't be able to spend the night together because he wants his time alone with Sally. Mater reluctantly agrees, and McQueen heads over to his dinner with Sally. But that night, Mater doesn't give it a rest and pretends to be their waiter. McQueen orders their usual, but Mater doesn't know what it is, so he goes ahead to ask Guido, who is the bartender, but he doesn't know either. Just then, a show comes up on TV showing a certain oil billionaire named Miles Axelrod, who went on a journey around the world, and having run out of gas, decided to find a solution. After converting himself to an electric car, he sold his oil company and started a new one that promoted the use of renewable, clean-producing fuel with his company Allen Oil. In order to show what his fuel can do, he created a new racing competition, inviting the fastest race cars from around the globe to race in the world's first ever World Grand Prix. The host of the show welcomes Axelrod to the show, and one of the fastest race cars in the world, Francesco Bernoulli. He asks Axelrod to invite Lightning McQueen, but the billionaire says that he already did. But McQueen is resting from his very long racing season. Bernoulli also boasts about his speed, saying McQueen would not last against him. Taking things personally, Mater calls in on the show, talking back at Bernoulli for bad-mouthing McQueen. A crowd gathers at the bar and McQueen notices. He goes to see what is happening, only to find Bernoulli and Mater exchanging insults. Taking over from Mater, McQueen engages Bernoulli in a verbal altercation. Axelrod decides that the dispute is something that should be settled on the racetrack. McQueen originally wants to decline, saying his team is taking a break, but after one glance at them, he agrees to meet Bernoulli on the racetrack. Sally asks McQueen to take Mater along with him, and after agreeing, they set out to Tokyo, Japan. After a bit of sightseeing around Japan, McQueen takes Mater and his team to a party and warns Mater to be on his best behavior. But Mater remains his usual boisterous self. The rusty tow truck spots Francesco Bernoulli from a distance and drives over to greet him, much to McQueen's dismay. McQueen is forced to greet the famous race car, and Mater makes matters worse. After a not-so-friendly chat with the famous race car, McQueen excuses himself, this time more fired up to beat his contender. At the same time, Agent McMissile makes his way into the party. He's joined by another agent named Agent Holly Shiftwell, who informs him about a message from London. She reports that an American agent was able to get a photo of the mind behind the entire criminal operation and would be coming to the party to deliver it to McMissile. Just then, the secret agent spots Professor Zundap in the distance. He decides to change his plans and have Agent Holly meet the American instead, but she objects, saying she's with technicals and not a field agent. Meanwhile, back at the party, Mater eats some Japanese food that's a little too much for him. After making a scene and leaking oil on stage, McQueen is angry with him and tells him to go take care of himself. Mater reveals that he never leaks oil, but excuses himself to the bathroom anyway. Just then, the American agent enters the bathroom and contacts McMissile. However, he runs into some trouble with the criminals. Agent Shiftwell is sent to retrieve the package, oblivious to the battle in the bathroom. As the fight continues, Mater makes his way out of the bathroom, interrupting the fight. The American agent plants the package on him, and Mater excuses himself. Agent Shiftwell meets Mater in the corridor while tracking the package. Thinking he's the American agent, she asks the secret question, but coincidentally, Mater answers correctly. The agent asks them to meet up the following day, but thinking it's a date, Mater tells his friends, but they don't believe him. Meanwhile, the American agent has been captured and is being interrogated. Professor Zundap fills him up with some Allen oil and reveals that the oil has a weakness. When exposed to an electromagnetic pulse, it would explode. The camera which Agent McMissile had previously discovered is an electromagnetic pulse emitter, and the professor is using it to torture the agent. After asking for the identity of the so-called agent who he passed on the package to, they finally discover that it's Mater. The professor orders his men to capture Mater, and they terminate the American agent. The following day, the race gets underway. Lightning McQueen is being taunted by Francesco Bernoulli, but this fires him up to beat the Italian race car. The race begins, and we see Agents McMissile and Shiftwell watching Mater from a secluded location. Shiftwell is skeptical about Mater, but McMissile reassures her, believing he's the real deal. Meanwhile, the race is underway, and Bernoulli is taking the lead. However, the cars reach the dirt track, and McQueen, along with other GT cars, gains the upper hand. They reach the asphalt ground again, and Bernoulli tries to recover his earlier advantage. Just then, the criminals ready their EMP camera and aim it at the race cars. One by one, the cars start exploding. However, just then, the criminals spot Mater at the pit stop. Gathering all their forces, the criminals go after him, but Agents McMissile and Shiftwell notice this and try to get him out. As Agent Shiftwell is communicating with Mater over the radio, McMissile leaves the secluded location and enters the field, clearing a path for the rusty tow truck. However, the constant discussion between Mater and Shiftwell seems to distract McQueen, making him lose his advantage to Bernoulli. Meanwhile, McMissile is busy clearing the path for Mater. The agent runs into some trouble, but thanks to some karate skills, he squeezes his way out of the situation. Shiftwell informs Mater that he's safe now and they will meet the following day because they have been compromised. At the same time, the race ends, with Bernoulli in the lead and McQueen coming in second place. During the interviews, Bernoulli keeps bragging about how he won the race, much to McQueen's disgust. He spots Mater in the distance and sneaks out to confront him. McQueen verbally expresses his displeasure to Mater and leaves the tow truck forlorn. After a brief interview with the reporters, McQueen reveals that he lost because of a mistake on his part, but he assures them that the problem has been sorted and that it won't happen again. Meanwhile, Axelrod is under fire from reporters who claim that his oil is responsible for the burnouts that happened with the cars during the race, but he valiantly denies all allegations, claiming that his oil is safe. The next day, Mater makes his way to the airport but is being followed. However, thanks to McMissile, Mater eludes his pursuers. The British agent introduces himself to Mater, but just then, the pursuers pick up on their location and give chase. After a long chase and gun battle, McMissile and Mater get help from another agent, a private jet named Sid. They manage to board the jet, shaking off their pursuers and exiting the scene. Aboard the private jet, the agents retrieve the package from Matters, and using a hologram device, they analyze the photo. It's a photo of a car engine, but thanks to Matters' expertise with engines, he helps them get a lead on who owns the engine. Grateful for the help, McMissile asks Mater to help him on the case. Mater reveals that he's just a tow truck, but McMissile still believes it's his cover, and laughs it off with a joke of his own. McMissile ends the discussion, ordering Sid to take them to Paris. They reach Paris and head to an old shopping district. Here, they find McMissile's informant. After a brief chase of Mater and the agents get a private meeting with the informant where they analyze the engine photo. Thanks to some of Mater's expertise with engines and the informant's wealth of information, they discover that the owner of the engine would be at the next race taking place in Italy. Meanwhile, McQueen and his team arrive in Italy. They are staying at Luigi's family house, and everyone seems to be having fun, but McQueen is a bit despondent and can't seem to join in the fun. Topolino, Luigi's uncle, notices this and asks why he's feeling down. McQueen reveals his unhappiness about the argument he had with Mater, who he believed already left for Radiator Springs. But Uncle Topolino gives him some advice, and McQueen's mood lightens slightly. Meanwhile, Mater and the agents are on a train headed for the race. They disguise Mater and equip him with weapons. Even when he tries to tell them that he's just an ordinary tow truck, they don't believe him and continue with the operation. McQueen and the other race cars make their way to the racetrack, but McQueen is still quite unhappy. After some more taunting from Bernoulli, which McQueen is already used to, the race commences. At the same time, the agents get to work. Mater is unsure about the operation, scared he'll mess things up, but McMissile reassures him, telling him to use the same idiot car act he's been using all along and he'll be fine. Mater is hurt because that's how everyone sees him, but Shiftwell reminds them that they do not have much time, having Mater get into his disguise and continue the operation. The boss of the criminals arrives, and Mater gets into character, towing the boss into a casino. They make their way into a private chamber for the meeting, but the main boss of the operation, the owner of the engine from the photo, is not there. He joins the meeting virtually and reveals their agenda. His mission is to take revenge on those who make fun of old cars like them. He wants the world to despise Allen Oil's alternative fuel and return to using gasoline. The crime boss shows them the live footage of cars blowing up one by one, and agents McMissile and Shiftwell trace the cause of the breakdown. They discover the sources from the EMP camera that McMissile had discovered earlier, and, wasting no time, the field agent heads over to stop the culprit, but cars are already losing faith in Allen Oil's reliability. He rushes over to the tower where the culprit is shooting the EMP from. However, they are expecting him and have something prepared to stop him. Meanwhile, McQueen and Bernoulli finish the race with McQueen emerging as the winner, but they are unaware that all the cars behind them are down. Axelrod is interviewed and asked if the third race will still hold and what fuel the cars will use. He reveals that the race would still hold, but the cars are free to choose whatever oil they want, and he wouldn't force them to use his alternative oil again. The criminals are happy about this, until McQueen reveals that he'll stick with Allen Oil. This makes them angry, and they decide that he must be terminated. Mater overhears this and is distraught, but just then, his cover is blown. He accidentally activates his guns, and after a shootout, he escapes from the casino and rushes over to save McQueen. After getting past the guards, Mater is finding it difficult to get past the crowd, but he's too late as the criminals get to him before McQueen. They capture Mater and keep him confined, putting him to sleep with some sleeping gas. He wakes up and finds that he and the agents have been tied up in the Big Ben clock tower. He reveals to them his regret about the situation and tells them again that he's not a spy. This time they believe him. But just then, the criminals enter the clock tower, mounting the EMP camera, ready to take out Lightning McQueen, much to Mater's dismay. Meanwhile, McQueen is not in the mood for a race, because friends from home reveal that Mater is missing. Just when McQueen is about to give up the race, Axelrod approaches him to express his thanks for choosing to use his fuel. He cheers McQueen for the upcoming race, and his friends cheer him on as well. Hence, he decides to continue. The race commences, and as McQueen approaches Big Ben, the criminals aim their death ray at him, but for some reason, it doesn't work. They decide to switch to their backup plan, and when Mater requests what that is, they reveal to him that they had snuck a bomb in McQueen's pit, and the next time he makes a stop, he'll be blown to pieces. Upset about this, Mater tries his hardest to escape his binds. He successfully frees himself and tries to help the two agents, but they urge him to hurry and not worry about them. Mater leaves for the racetrack, and the two agents prepare to face their fate. Just then, Agent Shiftwell gets a good idea, and with some quick thinking, she helps them get free. They discover that the bomb is actually planted in Mater, and hurry to stop him. Meanwhile, Mater is already at the pit stop where he meets all his friends from home. He warns them about the bomb, but just then, Agent McMissile contacts him, informing him that he is the bomb. Shocked by this news, Mater confirms it to be true. He tries to back away, but McQueen approaches at that moment, trying to reach the tow truck who wouldn't stop trying to increase the distance between them. McQueen finally catches up, but then Mater uses a rocket propeller. Professor Zundap, who'd been waiting for McQueen to get close, finally hits the button to detonate the bomb, but unfortunately for him, the bomb is out of range. Agents McMissile and Shiftwell get into action, going after the criminals. After a brief car chase, McMissile finally catches up to the professor but runs into some trouble with a military-grade boat. With some quick thinking, McMissile gets past his predicament, using his explosives to escape. Meanwhile, Mater is still on the run. Agent Shiftwell tries to stop him, and after shaking off some criminals on their trail, she finally gets Mater to stop running. She tries to deactivate the bomb, and McQueen is surprised when he hears about it. Just then, McMissile enters the scene with a bound Professor Zundap. The professor asks why his death ray didn't work on McQueen, making the race car even more confused. McMissile asks the professor to turn off the bomb, but he reveals that the bomb is voice activated, and when they try to deactivate it, their access is denied, and the countdown timer only gets shorter. The group gets surrounded by the criminals, but thanks to their friends from Radiator Springs, they round up the criminals. They try to disarm the bomb, but after trying everything, they're frustrated and on the verge of giving up. But after a brief talk with McQueen, Mater seems to have figured something out. He hurries over to Axelrod, who is at the VIP box with the Queen. The guards don't let them through, but Mater goes straight to the point of disclosing to everyone that Axelrod was actually the culprit behind the exploding cars. Mater reveals that he's the criminal mastermind and actually isn't an electric. He also reveals that Axelrod was the one leaking oil from the party in Japan, not him. Putting a bit of pressure on Axelrod, he finally gets the billionaire car to deactivate the bomb with his voice. This confirms his allegations about Axelrod being the mastermind, and the billionaire car gets arrested. Mater gets knighted by the Queen, and they head back to Radiator Springs. Mater narrates the story to the cars back home, but it all sounds too far-fetched to believe. However, after Agent Shiftwell swoops in from the sky declaring herself Mater's girlfriend, they have no choice but to believe. McQueen asks why the death ray didn't work on him given the fact that he was using Allen oil, but as it turned out, his friend Fillmore was responsible for this. Distrusting Axelrod from the start, he had switched their oils, giving McQueen his organic oil instead. Radiator Springs hosts the next Grand Prix race, and after saying his goodbyes to Agents Shiftwell and McMissile, who promise to return again, the story ends as Mater proceeds to join the race using the rocket boosters installed in him.